So, Twisted 1.18.1 is finally released, and we have quite a big update with quite a few changes, some big, some small, but still. Now, I was never a victim of it, but first off, we've got, finally, the fixture of data loss. There's no more data loss in Twisted, and you guys can all keep your data safely, and you don't have to worry about it being wiped. Now, I know quite a lot of people have got their data wiped, and I know it's definitely not something fun to deal with, so definitely glad that nobody's going to have to deal with that anymore. So there is now finally a functionality to the doghouse. Everybody knows that the doghouse was added in the most recent update, 1.18, but it didn't really have a function, as it was just really a chasing truck that cost $80,000 and didn't look very good. But so we can instantly realize that there are not two giant mezonets on the back anymore. There are now, if you go into the back seat, you can see in this view perfectly. So you can only look dead on. Actually, no, that's a lie. You can look around as you are panning a camera, and it's actually really cool. So yeah, the doghouse is really cool now, and definitely more worth it than it was. Now, another thing that is different is now this chat up here. You can see it is completely different, and you now have a black bubble over your head instead of a white bubble, so I think that's actually pretty cool. And then now, if you are a user of voice chat in Roblox, you can now do that in Twisted. Now, I don't really use voice chat because I'm not fond of it. I'd rather just type to people. Another change I've noticed here and there is whenever you click on something, you hear a little click noise. Like, throughout here, there is a couple of click noises wherever you click on a button. Doesn't just happen normally, but it's still pretty cool. And now a big thing is, for the National Weather Service Game Pass, there is now support for Xbox and mobile. So you don't have to struggle your heart out whenever you are placing a warning box if you're on Xbox or mobile. And another change is this blip that you see as your location is now huge, so you're not struggling to find your location across the entire map. And now if you are on Xbox, you can zoom in and out on the radar with D-pad up and D-pad down. And if you are in Xbox, D-pad right will now open and close the radar. So now there is a couple of changes to this part of the National Weather Service Game Pass as well, such as being able to see the current time whenever you are on the National Weather Service radar, and whenever you are scaling tornado warnings, the box that you are using to create tornado warnings, now it changes size with the tornado, so you don't have to really try to your best to get the tornado warning to fit anymore, because the tornado warning box will actually grow with the hook. And you will now earn money whenever you are doing stuff for the National Weather Service Game Pass, whether it is assessing damage or issuing tornado warnings. For every tree you will rate, you will get $25. For every building you will rate, you will get $45. And for every tornado warning you issue, you will get $50. And another great update is that every single emergency alert service text will now display the correct speed and direction of the storm. So instead of it always just saying a random number, it will now say moving this direction at this speed. So for this specific storm, it is going to be moving southeast at 60 miles an hour. And now whenever you are looking at the past tornado tracks, if you hover over the tornado, currently it's not working because there's a tornado warning in the way, but you will now be able to see the max wind field width whenever you highlight over it as well, instead of just the funnel width. Alright, there we go. Now we can actually see it. Track length, 4,040 feet. Funnel width, 819 feet. And wind field width, 1,638 feet. The measurement tool also now shows up as purple. Now, a couple changes to the thermodynamics and stuff and how storms work is the lapse rates will now have a larger impact on how tornadoes are. Storms will now spawn a little bit more dispersed around instead of all being clustered in a general area. Funnels will now show up a little bit earlier throughout the tornado formation phase. Tornadoes now lift and drop 14% slower. Tornadoes can also just occasionally fade into appearance instead of just dropping in as a funnel and growing. Lights will no longer appear lit whenever a storm knocks out a power grid for a certain area. The rain wrap of tornadoes will now be a lot more thick, and they reduce the odds of two storms spawning at the same time. So there's now an extended cooldown of EAS audios, so that hopefully means that you can't hear overlapping EAS audios anymore. They reduced the deploy spam prevention from 5 seconds to 2 seconds, so that means that the second you are fully deployed, you can now undeploy. So there used to be a glitch with tornado warnings that they would randomly just show up white sometimes, and people would refer to them as God warnings, and they no longer exist. You can now no longer assess damage while you are in a vehicle. You have to step out of the vehicle to actually assess damage. They also added a surveyor tag to damage indicator information so you can see who issued the certain point of damage. They also did some much needed changes to the Doppler on wheels. The entire scanning system has been completely reworked. The scan wind speeds that the Doppler has read will now appear for a longer amount of time. There are now some threshold adjustments to the Doppler on wheels, and it will not get lifted as easily as it used to. So we can see down here that the undeployed threshold for the Doppler on wheels is now 110 miles an hour, so that's when it will get initially lifted, and when it's deployed, it will be up to 145 miles an hour, so you can actually intercept a orange CVS tornado in this now. Actually, technically, you can even intercept a peak, but better be a very weak peak TBS, so yeah, maybe don't try that. Now, one of the most exciting things to me is the Doppler on wheels will now accelerate and decelerate much faster, so instead of taking a whole 30 seconds to get up to speed, it now takes about half that time, and I am so glad because I got so tired of the Doppler taking that long to get all the way up to 100 miles an hour. Sadly, still takes quite a little bit to stop though. There are also a few changes to the TIV2, as it now drives slightly faster when you're off-road, and it now goes 80 miles an hour on dirt roads instead of 70, so yeah, this is actually a really fast dirt road vehicle now. I think the TIV2 is much more worth it now. And also, whenever you are deploying, the threshold will slowly get higher each one of these that you pass. So now whenever you are near a tornado, you will actually be dragged toward the tornado slightly earlier, right about 20 miles an hour before your vehicle's threshold is met. However, the dragging feature of tornadoes will not be as strong, so you don't have to worry about being sucked into every single tornado that you have your measurement read error on at this point. So now we've got some other just simpler bug fixes and just smaller changes to the game, such as they reduce the speed of the multi-vortex tornadoes, so the vortices don't fly across the map at like 150 miles an hour anymore. Ground scarring will no longer appear in the water. There were some inaccuracies with the track length, and those were fixed because there was some often occasions where the track length, whenever you're looking at a tornado and you hover over it to see the stats, the track length would often read a lot higher than what the tornado's track length actually was. For example, if the tornado just like barely touched down right here, went just over there, and then lifted really quickly, then it would show like a mile, but now it would actually show the realistic length of like, what is that, maybe 500 feet? Now this is kind of a sad one because it was really, really cool in my opinion, but they did remove the red lightning. Your probes will now give you a notification if you cannot place them over a certain wind threshold, which I believe that threshold is about 75 miles an hour. Whenever you're loading into the game, there are a bunch of tips at the bottom of the screen. Well, that's been a thing for a while, but they added a couple more. Whenever you have this to read metric system, this used to say kph, and now it says kmh. There were a couple fixes to working at Siryzm, as there were a couple of bugs whenever you did work there. And if you are on mobile, your render distance will now default to 4 instead of 8 like it does on Xbox and PC. They did a couple stuff for the moderators and whatever. They fixed a couple of minor typos and capitalization errors. Not sure what this means, but buying probes will no longer make probe drop-down show. They fixed being able to continuously boost your performance over and over and over again. If you have low health, you can actually see now because they changed it to be less obtrusive and have a slight red hue instead. You can no longer see the health of other players whenever they are hurt. And because of issues whenever you respawned, they remove ragdolls and they change the respawn speed to make it a little bit longer. This warehouse outside of Hibbing actually gets destroyed whenever it is hit by a tornado. As of the 1.18 update, it was never destroyed whenever it was hit by a tornado. And finally, whenever you move your player's character camera under the water, it makes it have a little bit of a blue blurry effect. And that is it for the 1.18.1 update. I do hope you all have fun with this update in the future. That is going to do it for this one. Hope you found this helpful, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!